Hi Steve, how are you?
Not too bad, thanks. How about yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad at all. Listen, thanks for joining me. Obviously, look, we've recorded a couple of videos with ourselves and Sicon over the last while. We've been getting more and more inquiries of people who are existing on Sage 50, looking to actually change and get extra functionality. Obviously, 200 gives them a lot of that. You guys, as can be seen by some of the other demos that we've done together, gives you something extra as well. So look, I wanted you to jump on the call with me today, and I want to record this and share it with our own guys. As as is always the case, it's always driven by inquiries that we get over the last while. And one of the big ones was Sicon Cashflow. Now, I know we did a demonstration with a client a while ago, so it sort of piqued my interest as well. And I'd like to know more about it too, and share it with any of the guys. So look, if you can give us a brief run through on what you can do within Sicon Cashflow, happy to hear everything.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, it's a cracking little module, does what it needs to do. I think the key bit for me is because it's sat in Sage, it's interacting real time, and that's the real benefit. So rather than running off a load of reports, compiling them, and then that it's based on live transactions. But often where I like to start is, sounds a bit strange, but it's what is it and what it's not. And I think that's the problem, because for me, people hear forecasting, and then that goes off in multiple different sort of directions. So it is about short to mid-term cash, so your actual cash position. What it's not a forecasting where you look at markets and you start to factor in growth and stuff like that. It's not that sort of module. But yeah, if any of your customers are looking for something where we just need to know our cash position, what transactions we've got outstanding, when do we think they're going to come in, and what's the opening closing balances, for each month, then this is going to be perfect. I mean, as we do with the others, do you want to have a quick look? Do you mind?
Please do. Yeah.
Screen? Yeah, perfect. So let me just share my screen. There we go, and we'll go from there. So, I mean, in terms of cash flow, as with the others, if anybody's watched those, sits inside the same database, other than the fact it says Sicon Cashflow, you don't know. And it is really simple. I mean, once it's installed, first bit I'm going to go into, don't worry, I'm not going to go through warts and all, but the settings is actually relatively straightforward. So we've got this concept of what we call a cash flow set, and I'll pick one of my standard ones, and you can add sections into there which are relevant or not. So you'll always have an opening and a closing balance, makes sense. In terms of your cash or your bank accounts, which ones do you want to include? We've also then got a manual cash sales forecast where you can drop those figures in, and you could see we've not sold anything or projected selling since 2021. But again, we can start to adjust these dates if we want to. I'll just change these now so it will pull that through, and we'll see that shortly. Sales. So I mean, this works for your customers who are just running financials or running financials and commercials. Obviously, it'll depend which ones you've got, but your outstanding sales ledger invoices, outstanding sales order lines, purchases, etc. What I do like though is this, because often from a cash perspective, you'll have a couple of scenarios. So we've got a number of clients where salaries, so we need to factor in what we think the salaries are going to be. We don't know exactly what they are, because until you get your timesheets, etc. But we want to factor that into the cash. So we've got the option of either doing nominal cash budgets or doing sort of manual cash budgets. Now the difference would be, and again we'll run through this in a moment, would be where you've got recurring cash budgets. Well, it could be renter rates, it could be salary. We can set those up, and again we'll show that. Or it might be one-off, so you might be doing a summer party or something like that. So we just need to factor costs which we've not yet got invoices for. So we can cater for all of those elements. From a settings perspective, I mean, yeah, as you can see, there's a fair few different detailed views, which we'll talk about shortly. Currency filtering. So that's an interesting one, where if we, any of your customers have got multi-currencies, being able to switch the views there. And again, we'll touch on that. And then these two, I'm going to circle this one on the sales, and I'm going to circle this one on the purchase, but I'll leave that there. I'm going to leave you in limbo a little bit, Howard. I'm going to keep you on your toes a little bit until we get to that particular section. So I'm just going to save that off. Now, once you've got your settings done and you've built your different cash flow sets, it's a case of coming in here. and I'm going to pick that same cash flow set, and now it's just going to load all the information from a variety of sources. Now, at the moment, I've got month view, and I've said I only want to see 6 months worth. You can actually go out months wise. I think it's the 36 months. You never would, because you're not, as I say, it's about your cash position, but you can go out. But you can actually look at it on a weekly or even a daily basis. Again, we'll swap some of those views. Different levels of detail as well. At the moment, I'm at the most granular. So as you'll see, as we expand through, I'll actually be able to see the individual purchase order lines or sales order lines as well. So this really caters for different requirements from the customer. Now, in the view, obviously my opening closing balance isn't overdue. Hopefully nobody's is as messy as mine here in terms of it is demo data, but that would be perhaps we move into the start of a new month and we just haven't tidied up the previous ones, but also would be the balances of your bank accounts. Opening, closing, as we go, fairly straightforward. So what I often do is I often work from the ground up. So I mentioned manual budgets, so these are great. So the way this works, and if I just right mouse click on there, so I actually didn't want to amend the I'll go back up to this one here, top here. That's what I want to do, maintain the manual nominals. So say this is a great way. It might be a summer party. I don't know, it might be a deposit that you're going to need to make for something. So it's your cash is actually going out to the bank. Well, you can add these in. You pick the nominal that's it's going to be associated with, and then the value. And there's this little paid icon as well. So you can keep this in. You can keep this in the cash flow. And then at the point that you've received the invoice, well, obviously you don't want to double count. You can then just mark as paid. You can also change the forecast date, and I'll talk a bit more about that with some of the other transactions, but it might be actually the summer party, we've moved it back by a month just because half of the company were off for holidays, that sort of thing. But what I really like though is just above it is the nominal. So what we've done, well, I think the weird bit is, and I'll pick on rent and rates, that one I'll do just up here. So if I just amend the nominal, there's a lot of customers actually don't realize you can set nominal budgets in Sage 200. So this is the area against your nominal. You can then set what your budget's going to be. So and you could say it's going to be a monthly budget, or it might be an annual budget, which you're going to split. So if I do an annual budget and we say 120,000, tap that through, we've got £10,000 a year, but that's not your cash position. That's going to be it might be, what is this, rent and rates, but you might pay for that at the start of the year and then defer it from an accounts perspective. So what we've added when this is installed are these cash budgets. So what we can then say is actually we've got I'm trying to think what period we're in now. So we'll go July, we've got £60,000 that we're going to pay out in July, and we've got £60,000 that we're going to pay out in October. So as I save this, you've got your cash position. I'm just going to reload the cash forecast now. Apologies, I'm working from home today, Howard, if you could hear. This is real life, so if you can hear dogs in the background. But as I load that, I've now got that cash position reflected in the forecast. Now, the key bit here is again enabling customers. So I mentioned salaries, rent rates could be another one. It's fantastic for just front loading those, and we've actually got an import to be able to import those cash nominal budgets. So you can start to capture things that aren't already on the ledgers themselves. And again, as we expand, we can see the periods in there, and I can right mouse click. I can add memos if I want to, but I can then just click and say that's actually paid because we've now paid the cash position. So that's quite a nice starter. But as we move up, this is really, we start to then get into the benefit of having, because all of that, no disrespect, you could do that in an Excel spreadsheet. The real difference here though is if I come in, and I mentioned earlier, we go to our, so we'll pick good old Atlas ranges, and as we start to expand, as I mentioned earlier, these are actually lines on the purchase order. Now what it's doing,
you can break it down to that level.
You can, and that's down to this level item of detail. Of course, you might not want to go down to that level, and again, I'll show you some of those in a moment. But what we do is, because we're sat in Sage, it's not just when's it going to arrive. Again, we factor in the payment terms for the account. So when are you likely to be paying that based on the date that it should arrive? Now, what you can do is you can say, well, we're going to push that back. And it's not going to affect the PO, dates on the PO, but we do have a forecast date on the PO. But I can, because I'm in month view, I need to say, well, when are we likely to pay it? I'm going to say the 18th. And of course, you can switch off auto refresh if you're doing a lot of changes. But now we've moved that into August.
Good.
And if I actually go down and I drill down into the purchase order, what we're actually doing is, and again, we obviously can open up the PO, is as we view this, this is our field on here. So you've still got the original requested dates, but then we're updating the forecast. Now, if I updated that date from inside the PO, of course, that's going to be reflected. However, the other side of it is as soon as we match our invoice, of course, it's going to disappear from the purchase orders, and it's now going to show up as an outstanding debt on our purchase ledger itself. So again, it's always going to be updated every time you refresh. If somebody's doing something to the purchase orders, you know, the goods received it, they've matched the invoice, it's adjusting itself. So again, if I come down to here and I'll pick, let's go for Ernie Swinton. These are always got some good ones here. If there's a group of them, you're not going to pay. Again, you can select multiple. This time you click on here, and that's where you'd say, well, we're not going to pay them until the end of the month. So it's all going off here today. So we're going to move those now to the end of the month to August. So what I'll do is, if I come back to, yeah, really sorry, if I come back to trying to think of an easy way for you to be able to do that. Yeah, we'll do this. So let me just down. So of course, Howard, what that means is then, as you've got somebody who goods receives the PO, they match the invoice, it's going to move from your purchase orders back up to your ledgers as well. So again, that live data. Now from a purchase
showing
ledger,
that full integration.
Exactly. So, you know, if I come down here to Ernie Swinton, I know I've got a load of invoices. What we can also do here is, so perhaps we've got these in August, I've already moved those, or these ones just below I've not yet moved. So what I can do is, if I hold down shift, I can actually move a lot. And this time you click on this particular icon and you'll say, well, actually, yeah, we're not going to pay those till the end of August. Again, I've got auto refresh on, and what that's going to do is you can see it, you're able to move multiple. So it's not just one transaction at a time. Now, I don't know if you remember, I said there was 2 tick boxes, and I'll come back to those a little bit later.
I saw that.
One of those on the purchase ledger. So I'm going to pick this one here. So if I right mouse click and I drill down and look at the transaction, there's a few different ways I can interact. Now, if you look at the moment, the due date is the 30th of May. So it's obviously overdue. And if you have a look down there, there's nothing in the forecast date. So that particular tick box, with it ticked, if I now drag that into August, again, I'm going to say 31st of August. With that tick box checked, not only has it now moved that in my cash flow forecast, but it's also linked the due date to the new forecast date. So you'll see the original in brackets, but what it means is that will now not appear on the July payment run because we've moved the due date. So again, this is where we can start to not only save time, we can start to, now, if you don't want to do that, you can untick it, but this is, again, the benefit of being in Sage is we're actually moving things around and adjusting the bits in Sage. I can even do 2-way memos. So I can add a memo in here and go, this is a memo. not very imaginative. If I just close out of that and I just refresh, what we'll have is, you see the memo there?
Yeah, see
so
it.
We can now see this is a memo.
There.
But what I can also do is I can also add memos in here, which would go the other way. So as I'm moving it,
that's the benefit of that integration, really, and you're reducing the need to double enter information in as well, or dates.
Exactly. So and the thing is, I'm at month view, you could be down at week view. You can also mark things as bad debt, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. And of course, you can drill down to find the supplier if you wanted to phone that supplier up as well. So that's your purchase side. But of course, if you pay the invoices, they will disappear as well from this, because this is only outstanding transactions. and therefore your cash accounts are going to be updated. Now, sales is similar. A lot of the time, obviously, you're going to see outstanding sales order lines, and this is more when a customer's going to pay us. So of course we can move those out. Now, a couple of bits on the sales ledger bit. You've probably seen already these flags. So we do have a key, so we can see perhaps there's unallocated receipts. If on a purchases side, if you use invoice authorization, you can see which ones require authorization. But there's a couple of bits I want to talk about, and one of those is bad debt. So we've actually got a client, they use this to manage their credit control. So they've got their team kind of phoning through this list. So you know, you phone up and speak to Asda, you know, you've got the details there, you've got your invoice, you can view the customer, give them a call. Yeah. And perhaps you can't get hold of them. You've been trying and trying, so you're using the memo to add and go, try calling, call back Wednesday. So what you can do is you can say, well, okay, clearly that transaction is bad debt. Now, it's not going to do anything in standard Sage. Yeah. So, but up here, what we can then start to do is go, well, only show me my bad debt position.
Gotcha.
Or show me my cash projection, but exclude that bad debt. So what's the reality? What's the realistic viewpoint going to be? So again, some nice sort of transactions in there. The other one, which I've got is, and I did switch this on. Now, the reason I've got it switched off will make sense in a second, but I did switch it on and I was like, I've got no figures on the sales side. There's nothing in there, and I thought it was an error. But actually what we can do, the other tick box which I said I'll come back to on the sales, that's rather than use the credit terms, it will work out the average time that a customer takes to pay, and it will then factor that against the transactions. Now, the reason nothing appeared in here is because I never get paid. So that's
the tragedy of demo data.
It is, yeah. So I've got it switched off, but again, I think it's just a really great setting in that sort of instance. And of course, then, as I said, you've got your cash ones in there, and as the sales come in, you can of course right mouse click from here and you can amend the cash sales forecasts.
Got it.
So just a couple of other little bits, and then I guess see you know, whether you've got any questions off the top of your head. I mentioned currencies. So again, we've got a client using this. It's same client who does the credit control, using it for that side of things. They have they've got euro accounts, pound sterling, dollar accounts. So what we added in was this particular option here, where we can say, right, okay, only show me. No, I've got it set up properly. Only show me our euro bank accounts, but also only show me our euro trading accounts. And then what it does is it does a currency conversion on the fly. So the figures in there will be euros. Likewise, dollars. So again, you can switch that off. If you go into the settings, you can turn those bits off as well. I did mention other views as well. So that's kind of where I come back to that. Is all about.
Well, the interesting thing is, while you're waiting on that as well, is that the fact that, you know, like I said from the offset, you know, we have Sage 50 customers who don't have true sort of multi-currency currently at the moment, who are considering Sage 200. And, you know, although Sage 200 gives them that, you know, through the likes of this kind of view as well, it just adds an additional sort of layer for what they can look at on the cash flow side, and for, you know, people that are already existing Sage 200 customers, the level of integration, well, it's, you know, I hesitate to say integration because it's in 200. It's nearly beyond that kind of level where it's just a part of it, really. You know, I can see exactly, you know, how that would benefit them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, you know, as with this, how we've done enough meetings, I like to talk about options all the time. Customers have got options, and I think that's the beauty of when you're in 200 space, because this is option number one. You could do it through Excel ODBC reporting. You could use Sage's own inbuilt one. You know, there's different options. So, but I think this, certainly for customers that use it, it's the level of integration that they really like. And also, you know, for those who like to work outside, well, I mentioned earlier we can change these level of details. Well, if I pick summary And it's a bit of a sad game that I like to play, Howard, sometimes. But in the bottom left-hand corner, we show you how many rows we've loaded and how many seconds
That
it's
was
taken.
actually what I noticed earlier on. I was watching that myself.
So sometimes it's like, guess how long it took to load. But of course, now what we've got is we've literally just got the top level in terms of the summary. But now what you can do is you can dump this out to Excel. I'll just dump that to the desktop. And actually, it's a very simple thing, but we don't merge any of the columns. The cells in the columns drives me up the wall when it does that. So actually now what we can do is we can manipulate. And if you had it at the item level, it will break it right the way down to those invoices, etc. So one question that often comes up is, well, we've got 2 or 3 Sage 200 companies. Now, because this is installed in each database, obviously you're doing the cash position for that company. But what customers will do is they'll make sure their structures are the same, and then they'll just export. Probably not this level. You'd if I just close that, you probably export it. Let me just include all of that as well. Just so we've got that. You might do it down to the account level, maybe. You might do it to item. But as we export, just overwrite that. That then gives them. So I'm going to minimize that one as well. Reopen up this. Of course, now we're down to the accounts, but because you've got consistency, you can then merge all that, have a separate spreadsheet, drop all those in, and then just start to. So that's how they do that holistic reporting, but then have the ability to do that inside. I mean, there's other bits to it as well, Howard. How do we deal with that? It does integrate with other Sicon modules. I think that was one of the bits you highlighted. A previous one was our USP. So for customers with Sicon contracts, it integrates for customers with Sicon construction as well, where necessary from a cash position. But for me, it's a cracking little module, which, as with anything, it's perfect in the right hands. And it's hopefully this has given a bit of an idea today.
It's testament to your demonstration skills anyway. You got through all my questions without me answering or asking them in the first place. So thanks, Steve. Look, it was obviously on my mind just with regards to export out of the system. I guess, when I get queries around cash flow, even when we're trying to answer that, when we're trying to provide a solution to the client outside of what Sicon actually have, it is literally that. We're generating integrated pivot table reports, which suit some customers, but nice to have it all within the one system and the one view, the ability to share it like that as well, or to export it into Excel and share it with someone else. I think everybody has a different way in which they manage their cash flow reports, but I think this is a decent foundation for sort of having it all on screen at the same time. And like you say, that kind of integration with the other bits and pieces, more and more of our clients are using those modules around, not even construction, but elements of construction and projects and so on that I'm sure we can factor into all of this.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure there's lots of other areas we can integrate, which we haven't, just because there's not been a need. But I mean, it's a very mature product now. And the other thing I'd encourage customers to do, often it's nice to sit down in your own time, just have a look at the help and user guides on there, drop into cash flow, and again, create a cash flow structure, all of those bits about adding the relevant sections in there, screenshots, descriptions. So we are ridiculously transparent from that perspective. And but yeah,
what we'll do is we'll add in the link in the description of the video as well. So if anybody's looking for it, they go back to the video, they'll see in the description the link. You'll click on it, bring you directly here.
Yeah, no, definitely. And but yeah, I mean, if there's no other questions, Howard, that's what we've got.
Yeah, look, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for something concise to sort of, to show people, and for something for myself to reference, go back to every now and again. Also, very, very handy. So, no, look, that's absolutely spot on, Steve. That was exactly what I was looking for today. For anybody who is watching the actual video itself, look, my contact details are always there. We'll leave them in the video as well. To get in touch with me, we can arrange one-to-one and discuss the specifics. So if there's something they haven't seen, they want us to go through, very happy to do that. I'm sure you are too, Steve.
Yeah, more than happy, and yeah, apologies for working at home today, as I said. So the dogs wanted to join in today, but I think there's something nice about doing these live, Howard. So there's perfection in imperfection, I think. So
super. Well, look, thanks a million for your time, Steve. Like I say, look, hopefully talk to you soon. And look, if anybody is looking for additional answers to some of the stuff we have, contact details are there. But other than that, thanks very much for today, Steve.
No
Really
worries.
appreciate your time.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Howard.